guys, welcome to Sarah Says. So I'm coming to you with a book review. This is Mrs.Poe. This is one of the books that I did in my book club. Sorry, it's been a while. I've actually read 2 books in between and just have, I guess, been too lazy to do the book reviews. But I read The Fledgling and also The Book Thief. So if anybody is interested in a review, I can do a review on those as well. If you want to follow along with book club, next month's book is going to be Dying to Be Me. I forget the author right now. One of the other girls in the book club picked it out. But Dying to Be Me. So if you want to read that in the meantime, I'll do a review on that next month. But okay, so we have Mrs.Poe by Lynn Cullen. And so I will do, again, one review without spoilers and one review with spoilers. Just in case you do want to read it. So this was a historical fiction. Lynn Cullen did a lot of research, again, just like Orphan Train, with the other author, Christina. I forget her last name, but did a lot of historical research, read a lot of Poe's works, Mrs. Osgood's work, which was, you would know her as the author of Puss in Boots. She was Poe's lover in the book. And, you know, some people say that Mrs. Osgood and Poe actually were together, and others will deny it. But there is a decent amount of historical references and poems that were definitely assumed to be between Mrs. Osgood and Poe that resembled a relationship. But anyway, the writing was really beautiful. It was written in 1845 setting, New York scene, and it was really interesting that she took and brought to life authors like Hawthorne and Longfellow and Fuller and Wordsworth and all these famous people that we know of because of their work and their writing, and she put a face to them. And she made them real people, which was really interesting. If you're a literary major such as myself, it puts a face to it, and it kind of makes it more relatable. You know, it was more like looking in at one of your fellow writers or your fellow classmates and kind of picking their brain as they're writing while you're writing. So it was kind of interesting. She left a lot of things to the imagination. She did create what she thought would be the relationship between Fanny Osgood and Edgar Allan Poe, and the book is called Mrs. Poe because there's a lot of time spent talking about Virginia Poe, which was Edgar Allan Poe's wife. I kind of felt like the name of the book shouldn't have been Mrs. Poe, but I understand why she did it, because she spent more time talking about the relationship between Fanny and Edgar than she did about Virginia and Edgar. But Virginia is kind of the catalyst that pushes their relationship along, but also keeps them separated, because Edgar Allan Poe is married, Mrs. Osgood is married, and there's a lot of drama behind it. As I was recapping at book club for one of the girls who hadn't finished the whole book, she said it sounds like a soap opera, and it kind of does, but it's so elegantly framed and so well put as you're reading it that it doesn't feel so much like you're reading a soap opera. But there's definitely a lot of dramatic elements in there. There's a whole relationship behind it, but then there's also the historical elements like women's rights, the beginning of the women's rights movement. You have discussions between authors about how men basically owned women as property. You had discussions between authors about women having principles, and divorce, and you know, they try to speak about abortion, but abortion back then was a very taboo subject. You couldn't just talk about it. It was considered vulgar. You couldn't speak about it in public. You couldn't even talk about corsets and women's underwear in public. You were considered vulgar to speak of such things. So it was just a very interesting conversation between the authors, and then behind it, of course, you have this relationship between the love triangle, sort of, with Edgar Allan Poe, his wife Virginia, and Mrs. Osgood. So that's pretty much the recap of it. There's really great writing. It's definitely worth reading. It's gotten great reviews online. One of the things I appreciated about it was she sets the scene in 1845, but the language isn't stuffy. I mean, there's definitely vocabulary in there that was used during that time that we don't particularly use today, but she made it just very relatable, very conversational, and it was an easy read for me. It wasn't as hoity-toity, I guess, as I thought it was going to be. So definitely would recommend reading it, and if you want to go into a little bit more detail, watch my part 2 of the book review where I'll talk about some specifics. So thanks for watching.